Welcome to the PREP video tutorial on Special Education Section 2. This video tutorial is provided by PREP, the Parental Readiness and Empowerment Program, an initiative of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under law. PREP works to help parents become more effectively involved in their children's education. More information can be found on our website at prepparents.org. And we do our best to be accurate, but the law changes all the time and additional protections may be available in certain states and districts. Section 2 will focus on the process by which your child may be placed within a special education program. The placement process has 3 basic stages. The first is considering whether to make a referral, making the referral, and the evaluation for special education services. Throughout this process, you have the right to challenge a school's decision about placement. To learn the specifics about the complaint process, please watch Section 4 of this video series on special education. To ensure that students with disabilities receive timely interventions and services, federal law requires that school districts comply with strict timelines for determining eligibility for special education. The first stage in the special education placement process is deciding whether to make a special education referral. So who can consider whether a special education referral is a good idea for your child? You as a parent may think your child could benefit from special education services. Maybe you suspect your child has a learning disability, or maybe you notice signs associated with another particular disability. Who else can make a referral? School staff members, such as teachers, principals, or support staff, and they might notice your child could benefit from special education. The school has a duty through a process called Child Find to identify students who might have a qualifying disability and need special education services. The evaluation process will depend on who refers the student for a special education evaluation. A parent can request a referral for an evaluation for special education services at any time. As soon as a parent makes this request, the student must be tested within 60 days, unless the parent agrees to extend this timeline or the state establishes a faster timeline. Students might struggle in school for a variety of reasons. Some might have a disability which interferes with their ability to learn. Others may respond positively to a variety of targeted interventions and may not actually need special education services. So a parent may want to extend the time for evaluation to allow for a process called Response for Intervention, or RTI. RTI is a process where before the referral, the school will provide high-quality instruction to your child to see if different teaching methods or other interventions improve your child's progress. RTI may be valuable because it can show whether your child's struggles could be solved by different teaching methods or other interventions, or if the problem actually may require special education services. In other words, RTI can provide a parent with information about whether the evaluation is necessary and should go forward. There are many factors that can influence your child's academic achievement besides a disability, including considerations such as school experience and attendance, language barriers and cultural experiences, and civil rights issues. It's important to ensure that eligibility for special education is based on an accurate determination of a qualifying disability and not the result of stereotypes and assumptions. For example, a student who struggles with reading in English because they grew up primarily speaking Spanish does not have a disability. Data reveals that in many school districts, there may be a disproportionately high percentage of students of color participating in special education programs. When this occurs, it's important to ensure that eligibility is indeed based on accurate and objective determination that a student has a qualifying disability which interferes with his ability to learn. Considering RTI may be worthwhile for parents who question whether a child's academic issues are due to the child's disability. Some parents and advocates express concern that some students, particularly students of color, may be referred for special education services when what they actually need are more effective teachers and different teaching methods. As a parent, you may want to consider whether the factors just discussed are the real reasons for your child's struggles at school and not related to a disability. However, if you believe that your child may have a qualifying disability and requires immediate assessment, the school may not delay a timely evaluation by requiring your child to participate in RTI prior to acting on your request for a referral. For all of the reasons discussed, RTI might be a good thing. Usually during an RTI, the school can create a pre-referral team made up of the child's teachers and his or her parents to create an intervention plan. The pre-referral team goes by different names in different places. In some schools, it's called the Student Study Team, while in others, it's the Instructional Study Team, the Student Intervention Team, the Child Study Team, the Teacher Support Team, or the Student Success Team. As a parent, you should work with the members of the team to consider other factors that might be affecting your child's learning and attention beyond a disability, such as the considerations we discussed previously. Once the team has developed general education interventions that could resolve your child's struggles, you should make sure these interventions are carried out carefully and in the correct way over a period of time that is long enough to fully implement the plan. You should also make sure the school is monitoring the progress your child is making using these interventions. To make a request for RTI, consider the following steps and suggestions. First, tell your student's school, preferably in writing, that you are considering making a request for a special education evaluation. You should consider telling the school you are interested in discussing RTI before making an official evaluation request. You can ask the school to provide more information about the availability of RTI. Remember, RTI is not required under IDEA, but it is recommended as a best practice. If you and the school decide that RTI is the best option for your child, you should sit down with your child's teachers and collaboratively agree on what interventions to put into place. It's important to make sure you receive full information of all of your options. You should make sure you document in writing all interactions with the school, and most importantly, document your child's progress. If your child is in RTI and you don't see that she or he is improving academically, you should ask yourself if the RTI is effective or whether it's time to request a special education evaluation instead. You should also find your state's regulations about RTI to find out the specifics in your state. The path for referral will look different if the school identifies a student who might have a qualifying disability. Remember, a school has a legal duty to identify early on that a student might have a disability through a process called child find. Once a school has identified a struggling student, IDEA does not require an immediate referral to a special education evaluation. Instead, it allows schools to engage in a pre-referral process where the school tests whether other interventions beyond special education can help the student. And the most common pre-evaluation process is RTI, which, as we just discussed, evaluates whether the student will improve based on changes in teaching method. The school will then consider whether the student improved with RTI. If the student does improve based on a method like RTI, the school will then conclude that the student does not need special education services. However, if the student continues to struggle academically, even after RTI, then the school must submit a special education referral. The school will notify the parent that their child has been referred for an evaluation and will ask for the parent to consent to the evaluation. As a parent, it's important to know that during this entire time, you always have a right to request that your child be evaluated. It doesn't matter if the school would prefer to do RTI or if it has already started RTI. The second step in the special education process is the referral itself. So we'll focus now on how you as a parent can submit a referral. If you decide to skip the RTA process or decide that RTI is not working for your child, you will want to submit a request for a special education evaluation. A referral can be made verbally or in writing, but it's always recommended that you submit the request in writing. The letter or email should include a brief reason for the referral. It should be signed and dated. and it should also contain a clear request for an evaluation. Don't forget to keep a copy for your records. Soon after you submit the letter, the school should provide you with a response which indicates the next steps in the process. The school may respond in two ways. First, they may request that you provide written consent for the evaluation to begin, if it has not yet been provided. Upon receiving your request, the school would begin the evaluation process, which, remember, should generally occur within 60 days. This second possibility is that the school refuses to move forward with the evaluation process at that time. If the school refuses, they must provide you with what is called prior written notice of their decision. This notice should contain several pieces of important information, including a description of what they are refusing to do, an explanation of why they are refusing to take the action, and a description of what they consider to reach their decision. Additionally, the notice must include a description of your rights as a parent and contacts for seeking further information about your rights related to special education. The time period to inform a parent of such refusal varies by state, but it's generally short, for example, around 15 days. Let's put these ideas into practice. Can you figure out what is missing from this request for an evaluation letter? The checklist on the right may help. Dear Principal Jones, even though my daughter, Patricia Hill, is getting extra help from the counselor to deal with her anger, and I am working with her at home, she still has been receiving detentions for her sudden outbursts at least 3 times a week. Any little thing can set her off. I know we tried RTI with her special behavior plan, but it just doesn't seem to be working quickly enough or well enough. Thank you, Sasha Hill. Using the checklist to the right, we can see that the first letter never specifically stated that Sasha wanted her daughter evaluated for special education services. She talked about how she was concerned, and Principal Jones probably could have guessed what she wanted. But stating that you want your child tested makes it clear to the school that there is a request for an evaluation. To fix this problem, Sasha could add in the language, I am writing to formally request that my child, Patricia Hill, be evaluated for special education services. Sasha gives good reasons why she would like her daughter tested. She even mentions that she thinks the interventions her daughter is receiving aren't working. Sasha signed the letter, but she forgot to write the date on her letter. Even though writing the date might not seem important, the school must respond and evaluate your child within a certain period of time. Including the date helps to make sure the school follows the right timelines and helps you prove if they fail to meet their timelines. Remember, you should always try to keep a copy of the letter you send to the school and keep it in your own records. The timeline for the evaluation will begin when the school receives consent from the parent. If the school made the referral, you will receive a letter or standardized evaluation plan asking for your consent. The school may propose a number of different types of evaluations designed to diagnose specific disabilities, and a parent may consent or withhold consent for specific types of assessments. For example, if a parent believes that their child may have a specific learning disability, they may agree to have their child evaluated for a language processing disorder, but deny consent for a mental health examination. The letter will usually state how long you have to reply with your consent or denial. If you have concerns or questions, you should contact the school to discuss before consenting. The timeline for the district to complete a timely evaluation begins once the school receives the signed consent form from the parent. So delaying consent will extend the time which the district may complete the evaluation. So if you want the assessment to be completed immediately, you should sign and date the consent form and return it to the school immediately. Keep a copy of the form to show the date of consent if it ever becomes an issue. If the parent made the referral, the timeline begins as soon as the district receives the signed, dated request from the parent. Remember, generally, the school has 60 days after parental consent to complete the evaluation or provide an explanation for why an evaluation will not occur. The timeline may vary by state, but generally, states that have changed the timeline have required faster, not slower timelines, so you should check what the law says in your state. Once the student is referred, the school has to test the child in many different ways to see exactly what the child's disability might be and how it affects the child's education. The assessment must be comprehensive and individualized, which means that the assessment has to be focused on one particular child and test all areas related to a suspected disability. The evaluation tools must be conducted by qualified professionals who have been trained to conduct the evaluation and assess the results. The evaluations will look to answer questions such as, does the child have a disability that requires special education services? What are the child's educational needs? What special services might help fix or address those needs? An evaluation typically includes a review of school records and other developmental or medical reports, observation of the student at school, portfolios, and completion of formal and/or informal evaluation tools. The evaluation will determine whether your child is eligible for special education. You may recall from Section 1 that a child will qualify for special education services under the IDEA if two things are found to be true. First, the evaluation must show the child has one of the qualifying disabilities listed by the IDEA, which are explained in Section 1. Second, the evaluation must also show that the disability negatively affects the child's education and special education services would help the child's learning. If your child is not deemed eligible for special education under the IDEA, your child may still qualify for accommodations under Section 504, one of the laws discussed in Section 1. Section 504 has wider definition for what counts as a disability. The school would evaluate whether your child qualifies under Section 504, and if so, would develop a special 504 plan to accommodate your child. To decide whether your child qualifies under the IDEA, the school will invite you to an eligibility meeting. The eligibility meeting includes you, as the child's parents, and a group of professionals, usually the school's special education coordinator, the evaluator, and the child's teachers, along with the school administrator and others you may wish to invite. Together, you will look at all of the evidence and information collected by the evaluator or offered by the parent. The team will determine if the child qualifies under the IDEA based on the two factors discussed earlier: whether the child demonstrates a disability listed under the IDEA and whether that disability negatively affects the child's education. The outcomes of the eligibility meeting may vary, and you as a parent have rights throughout the process. One outcome is that the team concludes that the student has qualified for special education services under IDEA. The team would then develop an individualized education program for the student, which is designed to provide the student with special education services needed to receive an appropriate education. Section 3 of the Special Education video series provides more specifics on the IEP, and as a parent, you can and should provide input in developing the IEP for your child. You will need to provide consent before the school can implement the IEP. You don't have to agree with the IEP, so consider it carefully and share any concerns or suggestions. The other possible outcome is that the team concludes that the student is not eligible for special education services under the IDEA. If so, the school must provide prior written notice of that decision, which includes the reasons why eligibility has been denied. A child who does not qualify for services under the IDEA may still qualify for accommodation services under Section 504. So a parent can also request their child be evaluated for a Section 504 plan, which has fewer protections but does require the school to provide reasonable accommodations that could help your child. So what can you as a parent do if you disagree with a denial of eligibility? You can request a due process hearing, which we'll discuss in more detail in Section 4 of this video tutorial, or you can request an independent evaluation of your child. No matter what is decided during the eligibility meeting, parents should receive a copy of the evaluation report and documentation as to the final decision on eligibility. And while you can do either of these things at the same time, it's important to pay attention to deadlines for requesting a hearing, so you should definitely view Section 4 of this video series. So let's review the parental rights during the placement process, which we discussed. Before the evaluation, parents have the right to request an evaluation at any time or consent to a school's request to evaluate the student. Parents can also consent to specific evaluations proposed and withhold consent to others. And parents can also discuss the possibility of developing an RTI plan before the special education evaluation. While you don't have a right to RTI, don't forget that it's a possible option to discuss with your child's school. Immediately after the evaluation, during the eligibility meeting, parents have a right to a copy of the evaluation report and the documentation of determination of eligibility and the right to translated copies. Parents also have the right to participate in the decision of whether or not your child has a disability. And you have the right to help decide the appropriate educational placement and IEP services for your child. Parents also have the right to consent to or deny in whole or in part the placement and services proposed by the IEP team. Congratulations! Understanding the special education system will help you to know what to expect during the special education placement process and what to expect if your child has a disability under the IDEA. Click on the link in the comments section to take the brief evaluation to receive credit for successfully completing the special education session with PREP. And stay tuned for Section 3 of the Special Education video tutorial, where we will review the basics of a special education program.